Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Maraya Brown here. I have Sarah McCrum here, whom I think our initial interview was around 5 years ago. I'm not remembering exactly.
I would say at least. It could even be more than that.
Yeah. And that was when I had read your book, Love Money, Money Loves You. And we had a conversation around that. And it sounds like that's still a big part of your life, but also being the source code and codes of well-being have also come in. And to everyone listening in the Women's Vibrancy Code podcast, welcome, welcome. Happy to have you here. Sarah joins us from Australia. And curious, Sarah, anything you want to say up front just about your bio, your background, what you love in the world, who you are? Yeah.
Yeah. Your introduction, in a way, set it up. I think there are two things that I'm really passionate about that come together in all of my work. And one of those is well-being, and the other one is money, essentially. So a lot of work that I do is around true wealth, for example. And how do you combine true wealth, not just money wealth, but true wealth with well-being? Because there's no point in being wealthy if you're not well. It's like doesn't make any sense. And that expands out. I'm a little bit obsessed with what I call the well-being economy. And how do we shift our economy so that our primary activity, economic activity, is to contribute to the well-being of all of life, really. But of course, the well-being of each other, of human beings. And good, sensible economic activities do that all the time. We buy things that we need. We buy food and printers and useful stuff that makes our life better. But so much of our economy is actually run by death and destruction and disease and things like that. And it's just madness. So it goes from the well-being economy, the wealth and well-being inside me. And then how do we create that in business? And then how do we, through that, shape that into the world? Because it feels to me like it's really the most important thing that we need to do now is shift our world towards our collective well-being.
Yeah. I just attended a workshop yesterday on peaceful parenting. And the foundational concept that we now research has proven that our children are simply feeding off of our nervous systems until there's as old as age 28. First, they thought it was 21, then they were saying 25, now 28. And it's like, okay, if we want to live in a peaceful world, if we want to have peaceful children, what if we start with ourselves and our own nervous systems and our own sense of peace? And so what I'm hearing from you is also the well-being inside of me, the well-being inside of me regarding my relationship with money, my relationship with health, knowing that's then going to dictate how I see the world, what I project out into the world, and then what's cultivated and created. Yes, yes?
That's right. And then it would be crazy for me to say, I want to have a wealthy, healthy business, and I'm completely messed up inside, and I'm upset and emotional and not peaceful and not well. So I have to bring myself, my own well-being and my own inner wealth to my business in order to be able to function there with other people and with clients. And then I need to bring my business to the economy. So there's no point these days, I think, in talking one language inside and another language on the outside, that something happens when we align all the way from the inside of ourselves through to our grandest ambitions for the world. And then we really feel on purpose. We feel like, I just feel like I'm living the right life then.
Yeah.
That's a good way to live.
It also reminds me, I'm curious if this is something that you've talked about too. I talk about the triangle of fulfillment. If what we're all looking for is ultimate fulfillment, and that the definition of that can be really expansive, but we need health, wealth, and love.
Yes.
So someone with all the wealth in the world from a financial standpoint and maybe amazing relationships whose health crashes, what do they really have? Or someone who has an amazing community and love, and in love, I also put a connection with God and spiritual relationship, but they're homeless on the streets and don't have their health. Well, what do they really have?
That's
And
right.
so we go, oh, right. How do we stay focused on all three to say my relationship with money and feeling comfortable and having the freedom that money provides is important so that I can go out and enjoy my amazing relationships and my love life and my spiritual connection, but also that I do it with expansive health and feeling vitality and people around me to enjoy it with. So it sounds like we're speaking similar languages.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear you say that because I do talk a lot about true wealth and it's often in a business context. And then, so I have well-being, which to me is just foundational, absolutely foundational. It's the foundation of everything. Like when you experience real well-being, you want to create wealth and you want to create wealth for others. You don't just want to, it's not as selfish that I want money. It's like creating wealth is a contribution to a community. And it's a natural thing. When you don't have well-being, you don't have much motivation. Well-being is foundational. I then have 4 currencies that I talk about. This links with the work that I've done on money, 4 currencies of true wealth, which are money is one of them, because money is very important in our world. And I learned a lot about love through doing the work on money, funnily enough, and how money really is a relational thing. It's an energy of love, actually. We talked about that many years ago. Money is the first currency that we all recognize, especially in business. The next one is time, because can you imagine having loads of money and just being really poor in either how much time you have or how you use your time? Like many retired people are rich in money. They have an abundance of time, but they have no quality. They don't have wealth in their time because they're not, I see that here, they're not living a life that they love. They're trying to fill the time between breakfast and coffee. It's like crazy. So the abundance and wealth in our time, I think, is really important. The third one is relationships. And for me, with a lot of this, I also put in a business context. It's relationships at home and our personal relationships. It's also our business relationships. Like you can imagine and I know people who have really terrible business relationships and they're desperately trying to make money and do really well. But if you don't have good relationships, you don't feel wealth. You can't feel wealthy in business and you can't feel wealthy personally because you actually feel there's something missing. There's a scarcity there. And then the fourth one that I add in is wisdom, because I do come across many people who've made a lot of money. They know how to use their time well. They have lots of relationships, but they don't have wisdom. And they end up, some very successful people now are ending up wondering, what on earth have I done with my life? Where's the meaning in it? I've got all of these things, but there's something core missing. And I also feel that wisdom is important because if you have wisdom, you will say, oh, I need to make sure my money piece is working well. That's the wise thing to do. I must take care of my health because it would be unwise not to. I need good relationships. Like it takes you to the right place. And I think that's very important.
And I love that I heard you, and I wrote it down. I heard you say that we feel wealthy. Like how many people, they have millions and millions of dollars, but they save it all or they hoard it and they don't feel wealthy. And to say, I feel wealthy with my time and the abundance of it and how it's being spent and used. I feel wealthy in the relationships, both personal, loving, sexual, relational, business, and then wealthy in wisdom. So good.
Yeah.
I wonder if we backtrack to when did you initially write Love Money and Money Loves You?
I first wrote that. I first started writing. The very first message was in December 2010.
Okay.
And that was just literally, I think interesting. I was at a very, very stuck point in my life. And I just had a business failure. and had no money. It was a really complete disaster. And I think it's useful just to give the context here. So what happened was that I was reading a book that said, what would money like to say to you? And like, that was a funny question for me. I didn't think that money would talk to me, but it just did. Literally, I started writing and my pen started writing, and I wrote this incredibly beautiful message from money. And so out of this financial disaster, I gained this extraordinary series of messages. Like now there've been hundreds of them, but from money, like the energy of money itself talking to me about what money really is. And so, yes, from this complete misunderstanding of money, really, that probably led to the disaster, out of that came this tremendous wealth of, first of all, information about money. And then that gave me I had to kind of explore then what it is. And so it builds that wealth that comes with a deep understanding, not only a quantity.
And what I heard you say is that it also, a lot of what you learned while you were receiving those messages was the relationship between money and love.
Yes. And especially when I actually had to go and apply it. One thing was writing the book, but by the end of the book, I still had no money. It was only when I actually applied what's in the book and started to change my relationship with money. And I really did that a couple of years later. I moved to Australia and I had to start. It was a complete start over. No money, no connections. I didn't know anybody here. I had to get a business up and running in a few weeks, paying all the bills, literally. And that was where I really started to use the book. And I started to test, because it was saying, and the money was saying, I'm an energy of love. I'm beautiful. I'm powerful. I connect you all together. It's like, what? In my family, money was something we didn't talk about. It was like, ugh. So I had to explore what happens when you bring love into your relationship with money, and how does it change it? And what works and what doesn't work? Because it's not an instant recipe like, oh, I just bring love in and then money's pouring into my bank account. I have this, I have the ups and downs and adventures with money. But when that underlying energy is love, it's like a marriage, If the underlying energy is love, you still fight and you still have good times and not so good times, and times when you feel very aligned and in love, and times when you feel like you're pulling in different directions. That's a normal part of life. But when you're you have this underlying desire to experience love in that relationship, that is the glue that enables the relationship to keep growing through all the growing points. And I found the same thing with money. It's like I have the dynamics with money. People think, oh, if I read Sarah's book, then somehow the sun will shine forever and I'll just be abundant. But it's not like that. Even in nature, you have abundance and you have scarcity. It's very scarce in the north. Food is scarce in the north, in the cold, in the winter. Very, very scarce. But I found that when that energy, when that underlying relationship is about love, I'm always looking to find the love again. Mm-hmm. I know that that's the foundation of that relationship between me and money. It changes the dynamic of everything. It changes who I am. It changes my connection with joy, interestingly. It made joy much more available to me. It changes the way I solve problems. Changes the way I do business and view business. It changes even my ambition somehow. So it's very fascinating.
And I'm also, as I'm listening, I'm thinking, other people that I know that might be in a similar quote unquote industry. They think they come from Think and Grow Rich or Bob Proctor, or I think about Denise DT and Get Rich Lucky Bitch, or The Having by, what is it? Sunyan Lee, I think is the author. I'm curious if there's any of those that have influenced your work around love and money, or is this really just welling up from the messages that came to you and really your own original thing?
Honestly and truly, I don't read. Most of those people, I haven't read their stuff.
Okay.
Sometimes I think I should do, but I've just never really been drawn to it. What I wanted, because the message that came from money was so different. Mm-hmm. So beautiful, actually, and so resonates with me. And for people, people who read my book often say this is the first time that I've felt that this is a way of relating with money that makes sense. Like it feels right in my body. It feels right in my soul. So most of my energy has gone into, is it true? Does it work? Like, does it actually work? And then teaching, I'm constantly teaching and coaching people and learning the real dynamics of our relationship with money. So I'm more interested in people and how they navigate their relationship with money and how they solve problems. I love working with people to solve problems. I don't care if it takes a year or 2 years. I make my courses so that people can spend as much time as they need, because some things we're changing very, very deep-rooted patterns. They don't change in a 6-week or an 8-week program. You can get the essence, you can get the idea of it, but the actual solving major financial problems, dealing with all your debt, figuring out actually how to make money in your business, that doesn't happen overnight for anybody.
Well, I imagine it's a lot of deep patterns, like the patterns of an individual who's great at making it but tends to spend it all, or the pattern of self-worth and having a hard time receiving it, the pattern of no matter how much they make, it's never enough. I mean, all of that.
Exactly.
So,
and you see those in your personal relationships as well. They're the same patterns because it's a love relationship.
yeah.
So it's the same pattern that we experience mostly, I find, in all our relationships, and especially our most intimate relationships.
So really, you've spent more time, I mean, for 14 years now, coaching people with their relationship with love and purpose and the concepts of what is true wealth. Like, why are we wanting the money in the first place?
That's really what's emerged over all of that time and practice and testing and observing people and observing myself and deep exploration and all of that. Yes, what emerges is that we're looking for exactly what you said, fulfillment. And a truly wealthy life with well-being, that's very fulfilling. If you really feel wealthy and you're not pretending, it's like, I feel wealthy, but I've got no money and I'm really, really busy and I'm just telling a story, but you actually feel it. And we don't necessarily feel it all the time. I don't feel it all the time, but I feel it enough of the time that it's like, it draws me, it attracts me all the time to experience more richness in my life, a rich life. And I like a simple life. And my rich life is not crazy, traveling all over the world. And I do travel quite a bit, but that's not what I'm longing for personally. I like to feel simple and ordinary, but with this wealth of something almost intangible, but with the tangible parts as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. It goes back to probably foundational love language. I was thinking about it the other day. I also don't have a longing to have, fancy purses or, luxury vehicles, but I have a deep longing to travel to amazing and exotic places with my family and my children. And, that requires that I love money and have a healthy relationship with money to be able to afford it. It also makes me think of a story, and I'll be curious what you think of this story. At my last women's retreat, one of the participants is in her mid-70s, and she was a physician that I worked with for a long time. She's an amazing woman. And there's actually a PBS movie made about her, and she was one of the first physicians. When I first finished nurse practitioner school and I was working in a federally funded clinic, she was the first one that I worked with. And she was the elder in the room, and at this particular retreat, we were in a circle of, say, 20, 25 women. And there were some women in that circle that have pretty substantial wealth. One of them has a diamond that I guess J-Lo also has the same diamond. So there's this contrast. And the elder was telling a story of when she was in med school, she ended up homeless as a single mom. And she had converted an old VW bus to the home. And in the summertime, they would go to the park and she would cook their meals at the grill at the park and they would sleep in the bus. And she always carried a sense of guilt around it. Like, what did I do to my children? And she said years later, 40 years later, she was talking to them saying, what are some of your most fond memories from your childhood? And they said, remember when we got to spend those summers where we would camp at the park and sleep with it? And for them, there was this richness to it. And there was so many positive memories. And I just watched the faces of the women in the room to just have that kind of shake up or redirect of, well, what does wealth represent? if it's wealth of joy and it's wealth of time and it's wealth of relationships and wealth of memories, it wasn't necessarily her substantial income that she then gifted them amazing experience as a physician. It was the simple stuff.
And every single one of us can relate to that, I would say. As a child, what I remember is, crawling through the daffodils. I don't remember the Christmas presents I was given. I don't remember any of the stuff. It's somehow that deep connection. I remember sailing. I remember adventures with friends, sailing to islands and things like that, and going to the beach and building volcanoes and all of that. I don't remember anything about clothes or things, and I would say most people probably are the same. And of course, our parents enabled that. We lived in a house, we lived near the sea, and I did have a boat, so I was very lucky in that way. But if we hadn't had that, we would have had other experiences, because children create experiences. I was actually in a beautiful conversation yesterday with a client who is CFO of 3 companies in the financial industry. So she's got this very significant role. She was talking about her soul, and she was talking about what it's here for. I was asking everybody, somebody asked a question about souls, and she said, I feel that my soul is here for every bit of the experience I'm having. It's here to experience all the emotions that I have. She's somebody who often struggles because she feels like she shouldn't be so emotional, or she should be this, she should be that. She was brought up with a lot of that. But she said, I know inside myself that my soul showed up for all of this experience. It didn't show up for a bright, shiny, golden, kind of fluffy experience of life, the life that I think. And it didn't also show up for me to be ultra wealthy or ultra successful. But it loves the fact that I'm on this journey of being very successful, and that I struggle with it quite a lot because it's a lot of hard work, and, my bosses are horrible sometimes, and all these kinds of things. It's like this very fascinating, very personal exploration of kind of understanding the richness of her life through all the different colors of it. Like a painting, like that painting behind you, some of it's really dark. But we don't say, I only want to be the moon shining in the middle of it. I only want to be the pink bit. It's actually the painting is made whole by all of it. And I think in our world today, we've put enormous pressure on ourselves to have to be the light, sparkly bit, and not to recognize the depth and the beauty of the darkness as well as the light.
So good. Especially for ambitious individuals like a CFO, we can get so accustomed to being focused on the goal and then moving the goalpost and the ambition. But there's the loss of the moments in between and the journey of the ebbs and the flows. And it's fascinating to me that now you've kind of come into this health code place. And so as you're working with clients over, 14 years and writing this book that was a very acclaimed book, lots and lots of sold copies, and really applying it in your own life and deepening your relationship with love and purpose and fulfillment. And now it sounds like there's a lot welling up from within you that's really from the origin of health.
Well, there's a little story that kind of almost matches my money story. So that I think is worth sharing. So I spent 22 years training with Chinese masters, which was all about health and energy. I did a lot of Qigong, but did a lot of other stuff. Over 22 years, you get to learn a lot in that context. So I've done a lot of healing of myself, but also with other people. So that's my language. I learned about energy for all that time. That's my inner language for everything. And I help people heal anything, their physical bodies, their emotionals, their relationships, their businesses, their money, all of those things. But I was in a very, very difficult time last year because of a business relationship. And it was really extreme for me. It was, and I remember saying one day, it doesn't matter how much I know about health and well-being and energy and all these things. I'm looking for something better than this. I need something more. This is not working for me. And within a couple of days, interestingly, not enormously different from my book, but it wasn't written this time. What actually happened this time was I heard the words kind of in my mind, the well of being. I heard myself saying, I think I was with my husband. We were doing our morning kind of practice. And I heard myself say, we are in the well of being. And the moment I heard those words, it was like, wow, that is well-being. It took me to a place of well-being that I had never touched before, that was much deeper than any of the energy that I had touched into. It touches more for me into the space of creation, like the creation impulse of life itself. So it's very deep, very foundational. And within a day or so, I heard the word source code. It's like those words, the well of being, are a source code for well-being. And I started telling people a little bit about it. I'd say, oh yeah, I've just been working with the well of being. And I would see people's eyes go like, oh wow, it's like they could feel it immediately. It instantly tapped them into something in themselves. And then what happened was there were some other source codes that came through, one of them being the well of wealth, actually. So that came very quickly. The well of being is also the well of wealth. Our wealth resides deeply in our well-being and in creation, in this world that we are a living, breathing part of. And what happened was these source codes kind of unfolded what I would call almost like a different origin story, a different understanding of what it means to be a human being. Very, very simple. Like there are only 8 codes that I work with. So I've already shared 2 of them. There's nothing rocket sciencey, but what it means is that when you start to explore this foundational well-being that is already in every single one of us, it's everywhere. We can touch it. We can tap into it. And I've proven that because I've run courses now where I've shared it with other people and they touch it too very quickly. And then what happens is that you start to make well-being decisions from a different place. So well-being is no longer fundamentally about, am I eating the right food? Am I doing the right exercise? Am I meditating the right way? Am I taking the right supplements? Although all of those things may be part of your well-being, but you make your decisions from well-being, not from a lack of well-being or a need to fix your well-being. You make decisions from this foundational well-being that's already in you, always, that I experienced probably when I was swimming through the daffodils as a child, at flower height, down on the ground. And then, can you imagine from your fundamental deep well-being deciding what food to eat? It's different. It doesn't become a thing of like, oh, I've got to make sure I have the right vitamins or I do the right thing. It's an expression of life then to make choices about food or about your body. And it doesn't mean that I get that right every day, but it means sometimes, I feel like yesterday I didn't get quite enough exercise. I could feel it. But it's like, oh my God, I've done it wrong. What's going to happen to me? It's more like, okay, so where's my well-being? Let's see what does my body need to become more and more in alignment with that fundamental well-being that resides inside it anyway.
Oh, it's so good. It's like how earlier I heard you say I'm feeling wealthy, then it's also I'm feeling healthy. I'm feeling this deep well-being. And when I visualize the well, at first it was like, ooh, that's really deep and kind of dark and feels like a chasm and overwhelming. And then it made me think about your reference to the painting in the back. And right, there's dark parts and there's light parts. And then, oh, right, the well we can always go to fill up our buckets of water.
It is that deep, dark place inside us that constantly replenishes us.
Mm-hmm.
It was very different. I've done a lot of energy work, which is more like the light that comes into us. And then I was working with, in a way, this just incredibly rich, beautiful, deep darkness. And
it's overwhelming. It's confronting.
Maybe it is. I've got a group now who's been working for 3 months already. We're on a 9-month program. And the first 3 months, we're actually exploring the phrase, I'm making health from the well of being. So from that well-being space, how do we make health? How do we create health? Not I'm healing, not I'm fixing anything, not there's something wrong with me. but this is a creative act. I'm making health. And it actually does bring up quite a lot of stuff where, we're not healthy. It's quite a trigger for change, but it's so, how do I say it? It's just so attractive. It's so appealing. It's like, who doesn't want to be able to make things like that?
Yeah. It makes me think a little bit. Are you familiar with Kathleen Cameron at all? She does
No.
manifestation work out of the US. I think she calls herself a manifestation mentor, maybe, but she was a client for a little while. And a lot of her work is around identity and its relationship with manifestation. But for her to say, I am health.
Yeah.
And we go, okay, I'm making wealth. I'm feeling wealthy. I'm making health. I'm feeling healthy. I am health. I am love. I imagine that when we go to that deep inner place of identity, it kind of goes back to the beginning of this conversation, where we start with who we're being and how we're feeling and how we're existing within our own soul, or this fragment of our soul that's here on the earth school. And that becomes the expression that ripples out, and we cultivate more of it and we attract more of it. And then like-minded individuals recognize one another because we are being health. We are creating health. We are creating wealth.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, because one of the things I've come to recognize is that our activities, the things we do here, are really important for us. And so when I started to experience I'm making health, I started to experience it in my businesses. It was like it started to create more health in my businesses. And I can feel how it creates more health. And health is not a fixed thing. There isn't a level of health where like this is health. Health is something like happiness or like other things. It's an expansive thing. So health at the level we are now, like I imagine a much more wise, a much more evolved society. And whatever I can imagine now, they will be way beyond that. So a healthy economy, a healthy business, a healthy body. I think there are levels of health that we can't even imagine as human beings that aren't actually possible for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the feeling that we are in this creative world. We do influence everything around us all the time. And we can do that consciously as well. We can't control it, but we can contribute to it. It's very alive. It's very engaging. It's very human. Feels like, oh, this is what being human's all about.
And it cultivates more healthy humans. I mean, I was a midwife
Well,
for
that's right.
17 years. I think about what a healthy woman with a healthy pregnancy creates a healthy human being. Like, what are we cultivating? Pivoting a little bit, you've been supporting people for so long. I'm curious, for the clients that come in and work with you in general, how would you describe these people? What is it that they're struggling with? How are they finding you? Is it coming in through Love Money, Money Loves You? Is it coming in through a different route? What do they think their struggles are? And then what are you ultimately, right? Because we sell them pizza, we feed them broccoli. What do they think their struggles are? And then what are you actually supporting them with?
The thing that I would say that everybody shares in common, which is the thing they don't know that they're struggling with, but is the thing that they most commonly find, I would say, is actually being themselves. I feel really what I do is help people find themselves. And that can be in any, some of them are CFOs and things like that. And some of them are people who are trying to start a business, maybe don't have that much experience, maybe are a little bit allergic to the business side, but they want to make some money. They want that independence. They want that kind of sovereignty in their own life. And they want to make a difference to other people. So it's a very wide range from that point of view. There are a lot of women. It's become more women. There used to be more men. It's interesting, but at the moment it seems women are really showing up for this. What are the things that they think they're struggling with? I think what they're wanting is to make a really meaningful contribution to life. They're good people. They want to be making a difference that is meaningful to them. They want to be thriving in that. And the models that they see typically of success don't include thriving. I've got it's called a scorecard. It's called the money scorecard. And I was looking at the results on that the other day, and I saw that 90% of people who had filled that in said that they weren't thriving in their business and their personal life. So I realized that thriving is the fundamental thing that people are looking for. And so that ties in with everything we've been talking about. Well-being and true wealth is thriving. That is. So I think that that's what they want more than anything. So they have some degree of scarcity in their life, which is not usually terrible poverty, but it's like that not enoughness you talked about. Many of them feel like, some people come in because I run a program that's called Working Light. And some people just like the minute they hear those words, the working light is like a code as well, actually. The minute you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that's much better than working hard. I know that. I don't even need to know what working light is, but I know. So a lot of people who work too hard, I think it's very important for them, especially as women, where that thriving includes their family. And it includes them doing something of a business that really means something to them. It's not feeling like my business is my side activity. It's central to who I am. So the real desire is I think, to fill in those feelings of not enoughness, which often emerge as a lack of confidence, for example, or feeling like I know that there's more that I could do. Like I have clients who are consultants, sometimes in very like government or very senior levels of business. And it's like they're not able to express all of themselves in that. They feel so confined in having to live in these rigid, linear boxes that have been put around them. And there's this whole person inside them that wants to be there. And I think what I do is I show them how you can be that whole person, even in this very boxed organization. And those whole people, when they start to dare to do that, people respond to it. Like, it's such a fascinating thing for me. If you go out and kind of spruik your spirituality and preach to everyone about it, people will be completely allergic to you. But if you bring your whole self to a meeting, even if it's a board meeting, which most people are terrified of doing, absolutely terrified, like, no, I can't do that. I can't be myself. I have to be this special person. When they bring their whole self, they just become more human. They don't preach to anybody. There's no, I'm better than you because I'm spiritual or because I'm this. Or all of that falls away. And this human essence emerges that makes everybody feel more comfortable in their skin. When I see CFOs and those kinds of people who work with other people doing that in meetings, they come back and they report to me. It's like, oh yeah, I just did this in a meeting and the changed. And it was invisible what they did, pretty much. But they know. And they see the relationships changing with the people they work with. They see their boss or their team becoming more alive and more responsive, becoming better humans. That, to me, is what lies at the essence of all of this.
And if they're mothers, their children respond and start doing the same thing. Rather than proving ourselves, we allow ourselves to be felt. And what I'm hearing is that you're helping them be fully expressed as themselves, fully themselves in all four currencies.
Yeah. Plus well-being. And then we do quite a lot of work because many of them are mothers or grandmothers and children and teenagers and older than teenagers are challenging beings sometimes. So quite often there's just simple stuff that needs to be cleared up around that. So I do love the family aspect of it. I love it when people ask questions about their kids and things because the change can happen so fast.
Yeah. And are these like large groups? Are the individuals in certain countries or certain geographies? Or are you running group calls with hundreds of people from all over the world? I'm imagining people that are listening are wanting to go, okay, what's some more tangible, like if they're curious around working with you, what are they going to step into?
We're not hundreds of people. We're groups often of 20 to 30. But the interesting thing is, like, what I find fascinating is I have people in those groups who never say a word. And then I have people who come and ask questions every week for maybe 6 months because they're working through something really challenging. But because we're working with energy, every single person, I hear this all the time, people feel like, oh, my question got asked, or that person talking about their thing, because we're talking about fundamentally human things. We're not talking about the nitty gritty of how you do business. We're talking about how you are as a human being in business, or how you are as a human being in your family. So that human aspect touches everybody all the time, because I'm fundamentally working with the energy of what we're doing. So it's mostly like that. I run some masterclasses, which are quite good ways for people to actually just touch into some, to get familiar with a way of working on a very specific topic. And then I run these longer programs. My main program is called Wealth Streams. We bill it as a 12-month program, which sounds incredibly long. But if you want to make real change in your life, you can't do that in, as I said, you can't do it in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. But what's really nice about Wealth Streams is people can come on to the coaching. As long as I keep doing it, they can keep coming. And so some people just keep on going. Some people will come back if they're going through a difficult time later, and they say, oh, they'll remember, oh, Sarah might be able to help with that. And so this community forms. I think the community part is really important, because people support each other. And they often talk about how, somebody said yesterday, actually, she said, I'm going to talk about something I've never, ever felt safe to speak about this before. It was very kind of personal. And you can feel the community kind of step in around that. I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Well, I love that you say that, because it's one of my pieces of magic as a midwife. I'm midwifing women through chapters of change, but there's always a moment where someone will say, I've never said this out loud before, and I go, ooh, okay, now this is where the journey really begins. There's something so magical where I know there's always going to be a point they reach that. When is the question, and it's such a potent time. Okay.
So I just add one tiny thing in there. The other thing that I think is really important is almost everybody will reach a point where they feel like this isn't working. I'm worse than I was before I started. Life's terrible or something. We all reach that point where when we've been learning these things, it suddenly feels like none of it's working. And I always want to create a space where if you're feeling like that, and if you're feeling like it's Sarah's fault, or, this is rubbish, you can come and tell me in public, in front of other people. And people do, because those moments are also profound turning points for people. The moment when you feel like everything you've done was a waste of time and you want to blame somebody else for it, it's like, just come and blame me, but tell me, because that's where people turn.
Well, and change is the most confronting thing that we'll do. And I mean, like, what stands the really successful apart from those that aren't? They just stayed in line and they kept going at it.
Yeah. And you keep showing up when you feel like you don't want to and you can't. And it's not that you've necessarily got the answer, but you do get it in the end.
And just like off camera, we were celebrating one another. I've been doing this work, my purpose, for the last 24 years. And I even look, as a kid, I was the one staying up for the puppies and the kittens to be born. It's my purpose on the planet. And it's rare. And for you to be in this similar space and supporting people in the same way for 14 years, it's kind of rare to find individuals that have the track record and the continuity, and they're sticking with it. And I think it's an important piece in the world when everything's moving so fast. And I think people are losing a little bit of trust. We're bombarded with being sold to every time we turn around, and kind of sifting through, how do I know who to trust? And I want to trust myself, but to go, it's okay to ask someone their track record and vet them,
absolutely.
And find out how long have they been doing this.
And I've been teaching for already probably 12 years before that. I'm around 24, very similar to you, actually, funnily enough.
Wow.
I started teaching in 1997.
Amazing.
It evolves, obviously. But I agree with you, because it's very easy now to become a coach, for example, because you've done a coaching program and you've read some books. That's why I really emphasized before that for me, what's been important is testing. Does it work? And the reality of what works is never just like, well, this framework works or this method works and it works 100% of the time, because people respond differently to different tools and frameworks and things like that. So for me, it's like, does it work for this person? How does this person get what they want in their life, more of what they want and less of what they don't want. And that for every single person is their own journey, but we can support each other on that.
I'm curious if there's anything else you want to add, anything that feels unsaid.
Well, actually, what comes to me is that this conversation is a good example of what we're talking about, because I feel like all the time when we're talking from that place of wholeness. And so I feel very satisfied. I don't feel that there's something missing, because in a way, also with the energy of it all, it's like it's all contained in the conversation. I don't know how to explain that very clearly, but there's a rich, full feeling of being alive here with you and with the people who I can't see, but I know it's like they're there. Their presence is there, even if they're going to watch it in the future. And that's it. That's it. This is it. I love it.
So good. So I'll make sure that all of Sarah's contact info is in the show notes. Go there, reach out to her, explore her work, buy Love Money, Money Loves You, whatever and feels like inspires you. And if nothing else, to go, right, how are you personally interacting with the currencies that she spoke of, your purpose, your fulfillment, making health on a daily, hourly, minute to minute, breath to breath way and code. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for what you do in the world. Thank you for how you support people. And to all of the listeners, I thank you for your time. It is a currency, like Sarah said, and I don't take it lightly when we invest time intentionally. And so you've invested this time in interacting energetically with us and listening to what Sarah and I have to share. So I honor you for prioritizing yourself and your time in that way. And I trust that it's attracting more abundance, because what a great way to spend this currency of time, in my opinion. All right. Ciao, ciao, everybody.